Okay, thank you. Be seated. Right, good evening. I'm Councillor Julie Grace, the Chair of Council, and I would like to welcome you all to this full council meeting. Please be seated, thank you. Right, before I highlight the domestic arrangements for this meeting, I would like to start by congratulating and welcoming our newly elected councillor, Rob Dennis. And welcoming Rob to his first council meeting. On behalf of the council, we wish you all the best in your role as an elected member representing the town ward. Right, the domestic arrangements for this meeting are as follows. We are not expecting a fire practice, but in the event of hearing the fire alarm, please leave the chamber and turn right, proceeding down the stairway and through the emergency exit on the ground floor. The assembly point is in the public square in front of Cass, beyond the fountain. Anybody with mobility issues should wait in the refuge area near the lift and use the intercom to call for assistance. Now, can I just clarify, because that lift isn't working? Is that still the procedure? The lift's out of order? The intercom, is that working?
Yes, we'll be able to get... If somebody waits there, we'll be able to...
Thank you. Right, thank you. Right. This meeting will be recorded and published on the Council's YouTube channel. By entering the Council chamber, you are accepting that you will be recorded and your images will be retained and broadcast by the Council. If any member of the public or press are intended to record or film any part of today's meeting, please ensure this does not disturb proceedings. Can everyone ensure mobile phones are switched to silent mode, please? Right. Item 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies for absence from councillors Glenn Bluff, Laura Bluff, Sean Gibbons, Richard Allen Jones, Tracy Moran, Thomas Noon. Right, I have got Emmy Mudderman Rawlins, Austin White, Amy Dickinson, Andrea Robinson. Is there any more apologies? Go on, Dave. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. I've got apologies from Councillor Bev Chapman and Councillor Rachel Blake.
Thank you. Right. Item 2 is to consider the public and press are to be excluded from the meeting. There are no exemptions on today's agenda. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Right, if there are, I don't think there are any, are there? Do we need to go on with that? So, just in case that you have, please declare it now and complete a declaration form available from the governance officers. Right. Item 4, the minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 17th of May 2024. Are the minutes a true and accurate record? Thank you. Right, they've been agreed. Right, item 5, announcements. I have one announcement. On behalf of the City of Doncaster Council, I would like to extend our warmest congratulations to Doncaster residents, Sarah MacLeod and Janice Jinks, who are both recognised for their achievements in the King's Birthday Honours. Sarah, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Wentworth Woodhouse Preservation Trust, received an OBE for her services to Heritage. Janice, who is a foster carer and chair of Doncaster Foster Carers Association, received an MBE for services to supporting families. Both awards are well deserved, recognising both Sarah and Janice for their passions, dedication and the tremendous work that they do. Well done to both of you. I have no further announcements to make, but I understand Ros Jones has an announcement. Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. But first of all, can I ask your indulgence, because I believe my announcements may go a little over the required slot.
Yeah, that's okay, thank you.
First of all, I would like to congratulate our new councillor, for Town Ward Rob Dennis, as has been said, and also our 4 new Labour MPs for Doncaster. We have Ed Miliband for Doncaster North, Sally Jameson for Doncaster Central, John Healy for Conisbrough and Rawmarsh, and Lee Pitcher for Doncaster East and the Isle of Hack zone. We now have a Labour government for the first time in over 14 years, so we have national, regional and local government. Despite the changing government, I offered the opposition an opportunity to put party politics aside and work with me and my cabinet cross-party in order to drive forward the change and prosperity needed to enable Doncaster to truly thrive. My next announcement, Chair, is in respect of Dame Rosie's peerage. I would also like to pass on congratulations of this council to our former MP for Doncaster Central, Dame Rosie Winterton, on being awarded a peerage ahead of the general election. Rosie has been the MP for Doncaster Central for 27 years after first being elected in 1997. She worked as a minister for several government departments from 2001 to 2010 and was Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons from 2017 until her retirement in May. In 2015, she received a damehood for a long-term political service. Rosie's over a quarter of a century of dedicated service led her to being respected on both sides of the House of Commons. Working with Rosie over the past few years as Deputy Speaker, she has had incredible access to government ministers, consistently promoting Doncaster behind the scenes and helping to secure significant investment for Doncaster. Rosie will now represent Doncaster in the House of Lords, and I'm pleased to say Sally Jameson MP will continue Rosie's work for representing the residents and businesses of Doncaster Central. Chair, my third announcement is the update on South Yorkshire Airport City. It will be 2 years on Saturday since Peel launched their strategic review into Doncaster Sheffield Airport. And despite all our best endeavours, Peel decided to close the airport, with the last flight taking off in November 2022. These 2 years have been incredibly challenging, with many thinking that a lease agreement with Peel would not be possible. But here we are. We are now have a 125-year lease for the airport and in the process of appointing an airport operator. The bid process closed 3 weeks ago, and we are now reviewing those bids. As you can imagine, the assessment of these significancy involves very detailed and complex examination of bidders' business cases. Despite what the media may be saying or the rumours on social media, at this point we have not yet decided on an operator. There remains a number of legal and due diligence processes yet to complete as per our managed plan. The snap general election created a couple more hurdles to overcome, but progress is being made, and I'm pleased to say that we have the support of our new Labour Secretary of State for Transport. In relation to the airspace, throughout the general election campaign, we continued to engage with the government, but we also made representation to the then Shadow Secretary of State for Transport in order that if there was a transfer of power, then the new Secretary of State would be fully briefed. We are requesting that the newly appointed Secretary of State for Transport supports the full re-establishment of our airspace. As we are now leaseholders and have the backing of all 4 of our Doncaster MPs, we need the airport to again be part of this country's aviation infrastructure for the betterment of Doncaster, South Yorkshire and the wider region. We are not over the line yet, but I must pay tribute to the dedicated council officers leading this piece of work, which we call the South Yorkshire Airport Aviation City. I will update full council further on progress in the future. My final comment is about the city centre long-term plan for towns. We are currently finalising our submission to government in order to start receiving the long-term plan for towns funding of £2 million per year for 10 years. You will have noticed our big city conversation engagement exercise, which concluded at the end of June. This was a requirement to provide evidence for the submission to government. Our Big City Conversation consultation had over 8,000 responses. The overarching theme mentioned is safety and security within our city centre. We all accept there are challenges to overcome. This will take a partnership approach involving South Yorkshire Police, our NHS and of course this council. As elected members of Doncaster, it is up to us all to promote the incredible businesses within our city centre and across Doncaster. It is to this purpose I have committed £1 million of funding towards targeted interventions to tackle antisocial behaviour in our city and principal town centres in advance of receiving the long-term plan for towns funding. That concludes my announcements, Chair.
Right, thank you, Mayor Jones. Right, Deputy Mayor, I understand that you have an announcement to make.
Indeed I do, Chair, thank you. I would like to announce that Rachel Blake would like to be removed from the Communities and Environment Overview and Scrutiny panel. We will be replacing Rachel with our newly elected councillor, Councillor Rob Dennis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does any Cabinet member wish to make an announcement? No? Right, does the Chief Exec wish to make an announcement?
None, Chair, thank you.
All right, that's moving on to item 6. It is questions from the public, and we have 2 questions from the members of the public on today's agenda. I will read the questions out and then invite a response. The first question is from Mr. Paul Bissett. I do apologise. To Mayor Jones. Hull City Council set out the splendid example of building 99 energy-efficient homes, helping to tackle the cost of living with lower energy bills. These are 21 bedroomed, 49 two-bedroomed and 23 bedroomed and a 10 four-bedroomed council properties, all at affordable rent. The Herald Road Ungerhill development at Edenthorpe does not include council houses, nor is it guided by the Edenthorpe Neighbourhood Plan, adopted in July 2021. The City of Doncaster Council owned this land, then sold it to the developer, Keepmoat Strata. This land is the very last available piece of land in Edenthorpe. The council has not built any council houses. Why was this land not used for council housing? Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your question, Mr. Bissett. Disposal of the site was approved by Cabinet on the 5th of November 2019 as part of the General Fund Capital Receipts Programme, which identified a programme of sites for disposal and development to both support the Council's capital programme and create further investment and regeneration opportunities. The site was allocated in the now superseded Unitary Development Plan for employment. Due to lack of demand, the site remained vacant for many years, and following prompting from the Homes England, consideration given to residential development. Following this, outline planning consent was sought and the site was made available for sale. It is not council policy to promote or develop large single-tenure council estates, including those within the council's own house building programme. The site you mentioned will deliver a full planning policy compliant number of affordable homes, with 96 planned across the north and southern sites. This will include 23 homes for the City of Doncaster Council as part of Section 106 agreement and will be a welcome addition to our St Ledger social housing stock. And since 2013-14, we have built and acquired 694 St Ledger Homes housing stock. Thank you for your question.
Right. I understand Mr. Bissett is in the council chamber. Mr. Bissett, right, would you like to ask a supplementary question? Can I remind you that the supplementary question should not be a statement and must arise directly out of the original question or the reply given? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. We now have two huge, mainly unwanted housing developments in Edenthorpe. We believe this attracted almost £1.3 million in S106 monies. There is no more available land in Edenthorpe left at all, unless there are plans to extend the boundary yet again. This council-owned site was suggested to avoid the Mere Lane development, but was turned down due to a flood risk. Who and why was this decision made to deprive Edenthorpe when there are projects that this sum of money would benefit our community?
Thank you, Mr Bissett. Right. Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
I would, thank you. I believe I've given you the response with when the decisions were made and the numbers of housing that's been approved. And we actually followed on with the numbers recommended to us when we did a housing needs assessment, and it actually demonstrated Edenthorpe had got more housing than housing needs would demonstrate. Thank you for your question.
All right. Thank you for your question, Mr Bissett. The second question is from Mr Christopher Novak to Councillor Phil Cole. I will read you the question. Please, could you tell me and the other Doncaster residents why after over 5 months the 2 units in the Wool Market previously occupied by Rustic Pizza and Zaytuna remain empty? Councillor Cole, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question, Mr Novak. You asked about 2 units within the Wool Market. I believe you've already been advised of this, but for the record, one of the units was handed back in February due to a late handover. Since then, renovations have taken place and heads of terms signed and a new lease agreed for this unit. The other unit had been occupied since the end of January. A new tenant lined up to open in April, but unfortunately they pulled out at the last minute before signing the lease. However, I'm pleased to say there is another tenant who will be signing heads of terms in the next few weeks. I wish those tenants every success at this popular venue.
I understand Mr Novak is in the council chamber. Mr Novak, would you like to ask a supplementary question? Thank you.
Thank you for your response, Councillor Cole. Statements made by Market Asset Management and yourself led me to believe that the vacant units would have been snatched up pretty quickly. Market Asset Management said they were already speaking to a range of exciting businesses who are keen to take on newly vacant space. And you yourself said to Ed Miliband MP, the competition for stands in our Wool Market testifies to the profitability of this venue for growing enterprises. With that in mind, would you say that 5 months, because these have been empty and are still empty today, is an acceptable time to wait for new retailers to move into these units?
Councillor Cole, would you like to respond to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I thought you were hesitating for a moment. Thank you for your supplementary, Mr Novak. I think it would be, there's commercial confidentiality around the exact circumstances of why a particular tenancy ends or a new tenancy doesn't take place. What I would say is that the information you've been given is correct. There's intense competition for to obtain the franchises at the Wool Market. Ever since it was renovated and reopened in March 2019, there's been incredible competition because it is an immensely popular in fact, a kind of go-to destination in the centre of the town, in a historic building. And it would be fair to say that most of the reason that we work so hard to sustain a market in the centre of Doncaster, including the wool market, is to help grow businesses in the town. And the main reason often for people vacating venues or stalls in the market is because they grow new businesses elsewhere. They move onto the high street or they open restaurants or whatever. And so that's part of the embryonic role that markets play. The other thing I should say is that our market in Doncaster has 88% occupancy rate. The national average for municipal markets is 72%. The wool market is incredibly successful and will continue to be so. Thanks very much.
Right. Thank you for your question, Mr. Novak. Moving on to item 7, the results of the Town Ward by-election held on the 4th of July 2024. In addition to the report included with today's agenda, members have also received an addendum to this report detailing the outcome of the Town Ward by-election. Copies of these papers are also available for members of the public. Any members wishing to speak on this or any of today's agenda items, please indicate by pressing the large red button on your console. Press this button once only and the officers will bring you in to speak when I confirm it's your turn. You do not need to press the button again. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? All right, I have a request from Rob Dennis. Rob, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Council staff, for providing an excellent council induction so far. I'd like to thank the residents of Town Ward for voting me in as their Labour Ward Councillor. It is an honour and a privilege to represent the ward I grew up in and I live in. You may have noticed I'm a young person, and I'm reliably informed by Councillor Ball, the younger, that I am the baby of the chamber. I hope to be a voice for younger Doncaster citizens and also bring a change where it's needed. I'd also like to thank the many Labour members who helped me during my campaign. Doncaster clearly wants and needs elected Labour representatives. I am proud to be a Labour councillor in a Labour council with a Labour mayor, 4 Labour MPs, a Labour South Yorkshire mayor and a Labour government. I look forward to serving the residents of Town Ward and the wider city for however long I'm privileged to be a councillor for.
Right, thank you. Nobody else wishing to speak? Right. So are the results of the by-election for the Town Ward noted? Is that agreed? Thank you. Moving on to item 8, overview and scrutiny annual report 2023-24. The chair of the OSMC, Councillor Jane Kidd, will introduce this item. Councillor Kidd.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to present the 23-24 Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report to Council. I'd like to start by thanking members, executive officers, the executive, partners, stakeholders, youth council, young advisors and the public who have taken the time to participate in our meetings and contribute to the overview and scrutiny process, particularly the members of the public who've contributed their lived experience of our services. This report gives an overview of some of the key work undertaken by OSMC and the panels last year and demonstrates how our work has aligned and contributed to the Doncaster Delivering Together priorities. Excuse me. It also highlights how we have engaged with the public and partners, held decision makers to account, contributed to policy development and provided an opportunity for members to consider issues they feel are important to residents of the borough. These are all important elements of overview and scrutiny. Overview and scrutiny is constantly looking at ways in which we can improve what we do And last year we had support from the LGA, Local Government Association, to improve our questioning skills. This year, together with continued support from the LGA, we are looking at developing our questioning skills further and identifying ways in which we can add more value and impact to decision-making and the delivery of services. Our 24-25 work plans have been aligned to the Doncaster Delivering Together wellbeing goals and outcomes and Great 8 priorities. This will help us keep a strategic focus and positively contribute to improving services within the borough. In presenting this report to Council, I'd once again like to thank everyone who has participated in the process and hope we can continue to build on our successes. If there are any suggested issues for consideration at future scrutiny meetings, please don't hesitate to contact myself, a scrutiny chair, or the officers. And if you have any questions today, we've got some of the vice chairs and vice chairs in attendance. I'd be happy to respond, I'm sure. And also those chairs that are present, if you'd like to just give a few highlights from the work that you've done last year, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Right, does any member wish to second the report? Are you indicating, Glynis? Oh. Are you wanting to speak on it, Glynis? Thank you.
I was actually going to present my report. Right. So, as the chair of Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee, I feel hugely privileged to hold that role. And I believe that we've done overview and scrutiny in our panel to the very best of our ability. We've looked very carefully at things that have happened across Doncaster. We've looked at the variation in primary care in both Bentley and Rossington. We've looked very carefully at the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment. We've looked at mental health in younger people, which I think everybody would acknowledge is an area that needs very much support. And we've looked at the winter strategies for our acute trust. We've looked at health protection assurance and the challenges that gives. And we've also looked at the work of our integrated care board and scrutinised the things that have happened there. This year, we're actually going to do it in a very different way. We haven't planned our next year's plan. We're going to listen to the joint strategic needs first and then decide what needs to be looked at across Doncaster. So we're hoping for a very successful next 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Hemshaw.
Thank you, Chair. I chair the Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Panel, and last year's theme was child poverty. Sadly, around 31% of our Doncaster's children are living in poverty. We visited the Family Hub and Your Place in Woodlands in Doncaster North. The purpose was to give members an insight into the issues families are facing today. And it was good to hear from not only those who work there, but also the families whose lives have often been transformed thanks to the support received. We were also reminded of the stark reality of just how many rely on food banks. A short video was compiled and shown at the follow-up meeting where we also had people with true lived experience. We had various other meetings during the year, such as revisits to the SEND strategy and with head teachers, and as promised to discuss the improvements to front door. The panel like to dedicate a meeting each year to our amazing Youth Council. Last year they gave a presentation on their campaign, #More Than Just a Headline. We are meeting with them for an update next week. And this time the focus is on eating disorders, as this year's theme will be mental health. Lastly, myself and Vice Chair Councillor Tim Needham were invited to contribute to the Early Help peer review in March, and the strength of scrutiny on the panel was noted within the report, which is testament to our work over the past 3 years. I would like to thank Caroline and Christine in the governance team for their continued guidance, and of course to all those members that are on the panel. Thank you.
Right, does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Cobby?
Thank you, Chair. I want to say first thank you to the council officers, committee members and partners for another very busy year in communities and an environment panel, reviewing and scrutinising a variety of subjects, like our annual Safe Doncaster partnership with partners with the police. We had a particular focus on retail crime, supplementary in last October. We also reviewed the community assets from the previous year, had to touch on there. We also looked at the City Centre Public Space Protection Order, the annual flood risk management strategy. We had a conversation with Street Scene, Future Park Scheme, race management, and also extreme weather, which was following on from the 2022 heat waves. We also looked to have a very busy year again this year, a further in-depth review onto the flood management review, which will be invitations from to the Environmental Agency, Yorkshire Water and the Water Management Consortium on the 1st of August. Also another look at the Crime and Disorder Committee with a focus this year on road safety in October this year, along with reviewing the assets community rationalisation and the waste and recycling contracts later in the year. It's another busy year for us, but thank you.
Right, is there anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that the LGA training that we received last year was of an excellent nature and pointed to new ideas and the importance of data sets, something that should not be feared but should be acknowledged as a way forward. And I'm pleased to hear that the LGA will again be providing training to myself and colleagues in the ways forward for the modern scrutiny of decisions. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Does any member wish to second this report? Thank you. Right. Does any member wish to speak on this item? Right. Councillor Kidd, do you want to exercise your right to reply?
I'd just like to say thank you very much to the chairs of panels for excellent reports on the work they've done last year. Thank you.
Right. So the report has been proposed and seconded. Is the report agreed and noted? Noted. Thank you. Right, moving on to item 9, Health and Wellbeing Board, third annual report 2023-24. Councillor Nigel Ball will introduce this item. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. From May 2024, I have taken up the role of Chair for Doncaster's Health and Wellbeing Board. For the last 7 years, Councillor Rachel Blake served as an inspiring and united chair for the board and all its partners. I would like to take this opportunity, and I'm sure you will all join me and agree, in thanking Rachel for her wonderful service to the board and the great work she has performed to get us to this point. This is the third annual report to be compiled for the Doncaster Health and Wellbeing Board, covering the progress and achievements of the board in 2023 and 2024. It provides an overview of the work received by the Health and Wellbeing Board and a flavour of the work undertaken since the last annual report presented in July 2023. The report follows a similar structure to the previous report. An introduction by Councillor Rachel Blake and Vice Chair Anthony Fitzgerald thanks the wide contributions from Health and Wellbeing Board partners and participants, including people who lived and are living the experiences that have shared these experiences with the board itself. The report then outlines achievements and a set of recommendations for the year ahead and describes the development of the new health and wellbeing strategy and its areas of focus. The board has received reports on health and wellbeing topics that affect Doncaster people at all stages of life, using these reports and experiences to bring partners together for improvement. For starting well, examples included updates on children's and young people's mental health strategy, eating disorders and autism services. For living well, updates included mental health transformation, the learning disability and autism strategy, substance misuse and indeed gambling harms. For ageing well, updates were provided on dementia services and the ambition to be an age-friendly city. Other areas in the report include an ongoing commitment to new ways of working, such as Get Doncaster Moving, compassionate approach to weight and well-being, and Doncaster approaches specific to working with communities. There is also reference to the economic strategy in place in Doncaster, the borough strategy, Doncaster Delivering Together, and the Doncaster One Plan and its wider implications. Chair, this report will require acceptance, and the recommendations for the next year are listed in this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Right, does any member wish to second the report? Thank you. Right, is any other member wish to speak on this item? Nothing. I don't need to do the right to reply. Right, okay. It has been moved and seconded that the Health and Wellbeing third annual report be approved. Is that agreed? Right, item 10, questions by elected members. As there are no questions on notice, we shall move on to the next items, questions without notice to the executive. Please use your button on the console to indicate if you wish to ask a question. Are there any questions to Mayor Ros Jones? Councillor Ransom.
Thank you, Chair. May I have a slight indulgence on some background as this relates to my question? Ros, my question is about your comments on page 4, item 9 of today's minutes. Your quote was, "I first became mayor in 2013. I inherited a council that was in special measures and deemed a basket case and dysfunctional." You failed to mention that it was in special measures because of the Labour Party's appalling handling of the children's services. And what else did you inherit in 2013? A thriving high street, the first council houses built in 20 years, a thriving market, opening of the North Bridge, a new civic building, antisocial behaviour reduced by 33%, clean streets with an accolade to prove it, highest fly tipping fine of 250,000, taxis using the bus lanes, championed a TV programme for being tough on litter fines. My question is this. Having signed the kindness pledge, speaking of working together, is basket case the type of language fitting for a mayor to use?
Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Basket case was words used by others which I actually endorse as it was at that time, and we turned the authority round. We've actually shown that we've driven Doncaster Council forward in so many ways, and we can point to those as we can list. But I can give you the list of what we've done in writing. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Ransom, do you wish a supplementary question?
Were you aware at the time, Chair, the report, your quote of a dysfunctional council, the report from the inspectors was, the Labour Party's hate for the Mayor and Cabinet is greater than their love of the Doncaster people. I'm talking about 2013, which a lot of people in this chamber weren't even there, but I was. I was part of the basket case. So has anything changed?
You will see that we've got a very robust Labour Party here. I think things have very much improved since we took over governance, and therefore I believe things have changed. Thank you.
All right, as there's no request, has anybody got a request for Deputy Mayor Councillor Glyn Jones? Councillor Ransom.
Hang on, Chair, hang on. I think this actually falls under you, Glenn. If it doesn't, apologies. One of the things I was looking at is that could you possibly explain why, when all the guidelines of the LGA point to scrutiny, chairs should be in opposition to a mayor and cabinet? Could you please explain why in 11 years we only ever have Labour chairs when constantly being asked and requested? Surely all these other parties are being discriminated against.
Would you like to respond? Sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, thank you for your question, Councillor Ransom. As you are probably aware, proportionality on scrutiny in this council has been waived in your favour. So, therefore, I just can't see where you are coming from on this matter.
Would you like to ask a supplementary?
I'm talking about chairs, not proportionality of members. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you will be well aware that we have always offered 2 vice chair places to your group over the many years that we've been engaging in this council. And as I said earlier in my response, we offer more places than what we are required to do.
Right. Is there any more questions for the Deputy Mayor? Right. Moving on then. Is there any questions for Councillor Lainey Mayball? Okay. Is there any questions for Councillor Nigel Ball? Councillor Ransom.
Nigel, I need to beg your indulgence here because I think I've got 3 for you. Is that all right? Okay, here we go. One is libraries, and last year I reported that Doncaster children were not given the opportunity to sign up to the National Readers' Challenge. We were the only one not taking part in the country. So could I ask, why are our children being denied this? You have explained to me in a certain amount of how Doncaster has got its own challenge. However, I don't think that that is good enough to compete nationally. The quality of the standard alone was not up to the same standard as the national one. And the big problem that we've got this year is that the libraries still haven't received the Doncaster one.
Can I just ask, is that all 3 questions rolled in there?
Yeah, no, that's just one thing on the libraries.
Can we do it in a group of 3 then, please?
Do you want all the questions? Yeah, please. Okay. The next one is Cusworth Hall, and I'm delighted to say that the opening times have increased, so I do thank you for that, slightly. However, could you please give some indication of when they will be hosting weddings? when the weddings, it's a splendid place to host weddings. It's good for parking, it's good for photography, and it was also profitable. So if you could let me know when that is going to take place, please. And the third question, Chair, is, I think this is you actually, police and antisocial behaviour? No, okay. Just two questions then, thank you.
Right. Would you like to respond, Councillor Ball?
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the National Reading Challenge, if you cast your mind back, Cynthia, last year, I think the response was that Doncaster had basically embarked on its own project and its own, obviously, initiative around this. The feedback that we got from other local authorities, not just Doncaster, is that the National Reading Challenge was as not of good value and quality as the local one. This is the feedback that we got. And also in terms of the National Reading Challenge, what we've done in Doncaster basically is we've customised something together that's basically Doncaster based, and this is being rolled out to all our community libraries. Now I understand where you're coming from in terms of what you've said is that, you know, we should be embarking on the national one, but a number of local authorities have took that position where they've gone with the localised version. So it's not just Doncaster, there's a lot of local authorities that are doing this. So the other thing that we found is that there weren't a massive take-up for it, particularly around the national one, but the localised one had actually increased take-up. But I take on board your point in terms of when it's due to start. So what I will do is I'll chase up the date for that, and I'll obviously respond to you to find out when that's due to start in Doncaster. And again, if you want anything in a bit more further detail around the localised one, I'm happy to provide it. Do you want to come back on that specific one?
Just to say to you that the libraries haven't received the Doncaster one yet, so they're on the back foot by promoting it to children. So that's not going to help with the take-up.
So I get your point totally in terms of the localised one, and obviously libraries, they're working on a timeline. I'll find out when that's due to come out and I'll let you know. Okay. Just on the second question in terms of Cusworth Hall, there is a development plan for Cusworth Hall in terms of sort of like working with registrars to sort of like look at bringing in more functions, bringing in weddings, bringing in civic functions, obviously where Cusworth Hall's concerned. I know that Nick's working hard on that at this moment in time, and I also know that that's in twin with the work he's doing with the Mansion House as well. So it is being worked on, it is being looked at, and that's something that will come to fruition in the future. That's it, he's come on, he's the intercom. What I can say to you is that, again, I'll go to Nick and I'll find out a date in terms of when that's going to be, obviously, public knowledge as such, and then I'll report that back to you. In terms of the ASB one and communities, that doesn't necessarily sit under my portfolio, but I have some involvement with that.
Right, thank you. Moving on then, has anybody got any questions to Joe Blackham, Councillor Joe Blackham? Has anyone got any questions to Councillor Phil Cole? Has anyone got any questions for Councillor Sue Farmer? Has anyone got any questions for Councillor Mark Holbrook? Right. Councillor Stapleton, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mark, this is basically a question that's came to me as I'm sitting here listening. 4 years is the first time I've asked a question. I think this is quite an important one. We've heard the terminology used, basket case. I don't know whether you know or anybody else sitting in the chamber knows where that comes from. It's a very insulting term for a veteran, somebody that's been injured, who's lost their limbs and has to be carried in a basket safely. And that's where it comes from. It's quite an insulting term. Given a number of high-profile veterans we have in the Doncaster area that have gone through that, do you agree with me that no council officer or elected official should ever use that terminology again?
Councillor Holbrook, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm probably aware of obviously the veterans in Doncaster and obviously terminology that is used. I think the question was answered earlier by the Mayor, so I've got no further comment on that. Thank you.
Would you like to follow up with a supplementary, Councillor Stapleton?
I'm a bit disappointed as a veterans champion that you've not answered that question. That question wasn't answered earlier when it was brought up. All I was asking for is that you agree that that's terminology that shouldn't be used by council officers or elected officials, but that's fine. If you don't agree with that, that's fine.
Would you like to respond?
Okay, first and foremost, any terminology that is used negatively towards armed forces personnel is wrong. Thank you.
All right, are there any more questions for Councillor Holbrook? Is there any questions for Councillor Nightingale? Are there any questions for Councillor Sarah Smith? Right, elected members can now put questions to the chairs of the committees. Are there any questions for the chair of the audit committee, Councillor Austin White, who's absent, so any questions to him need to be submitted in writing? Right. The chair of elections and democratic structures, Councillor Emmy Muddyman, is absent, so any questions to her can be put in writing. All right. The chair of the health and wellbeing board, Councillor Nigel Ball. Has anybody got questions for the chair of the OS7C, Councillor Jane Kidd? Right, moving on then to item 11, revised executive scheme of delegations. This report is presented for members' information and is for noting. Mayor Jones, would you like to speak on this item?
I think there's been minor tweaks to the areas of responsibility for each portfolio holder, and they're listed there as can be seen in front.
Does any member wish to speak on this item? All right, no. Right, thank you then, Mayor Jones. Is this noted? Moving on to item 12, minutes of joint authorities. The relevant minutes are detailed on the agenda and are for information and not for endorsement. Does any member wish to speak on this item? Can I ask the member to move that the minutes be noted? Is that noted? Thank you. Members, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's business. I am now declaring the meeting closed. Thank you for your attendance.